For centuries, the Chenab's waves have told tales of love and romance. Waris Shah's Heer Ranjha, the greatest love story in Punjabi, is one of the tales told by the waters of this river. In the Sufi tradition of this land, rivers were addressed as Mai, as in mother. When Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai mourned a river that didn't come, he mourned it as a mother who had turned away from her children. That is the weight that this water carries. It's not just about crops or megawatts, it's life and civilization itself. And that civilization is now caught between two threats: a climate that is changing this water and a neighbor that wants to weaponize what's left of it.
The Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 will be held in abeyance with immediate effect.
That's why I'm standing here at the Marala headworks, where the Chenab crosses from Indian-occupied Kashmir all the way there into Pakistan. And I'm trying to make sense of what it means for two nuclear-armed states to now be caught in a conflict over water. Now you can see a few kilometers upstream from here where I'm standing that this river is in India. Over here it becomes Pakistan's, and that's not just geography, that's a legal fact written into a 65-year-old treaty. Under the Indus Waters Treaty, the Chenab belongs to Pakistan, and so does the Jhelum and the Indus itself. Three rivers almost entirely for Pakistan's use. That's the water that irrigates Punjab's farmland, fills the canals that feed Sindh, and reaches cities as far away as Karachi. Now, most people think that this treaty was signed as an act of goodwill, but actually it wasn't. In 1948, just months after partition, India suspended water flows through two canals into Pakistani Punjab. For 5 weeks, nearly 8% of cultivable land went dry and crops failed. That wound is what created this treaty, not goodwill, but actually fear. And for 65 years, through 3 wars, that arrangement held. Here is where you can actually see it. This headwork exists because of that treaty. It's the infrastructure built to take Pakistan's water allocation and turn it into irrigation. Which is why what happened last year matters, because it changed everything. In April 2025, India announced that it was suspending the Indus Waters Treaty right in the middle of a war with Pakistan.
खून और पानी एक साथ नहीं बहे। भारत से निकलती नदियों का पानी दुश्मनों के खेत को सींच रहा है।
That was almost as if water was now being used as a weapon as well. So the question that I'm asking in today's dossier is this: can India actually start a water war? Can this river be cut off? Let's start with what this treaty actually is, because it's a little bit unusual. Now, most water treaties split the water, but this one splits the rivers themselves. 3 eastern rivers, the Ravi, Sutlej and Beas, went entirely to India. And then the 3 western rivers, as in the Indus, the Jhelum and the Chenab, went to Pakistan. And these aren't small rivers. Together they carry about 80% of the entire system's water. This is what grows Punjab's wheat, Sindh's cotton, and fills the taps in Lahore, Karachi and Islamabad. Now, India wasn't completely shut out. It kept the right to build hydropower on Pakistan's rivers as long as the dams were run of the river, meaning no significant storage, no holding water back for long. The treaty even put a hard ceiling on it. India's total storage allowance across all 3 of Pakistan's rivers is 3.6 million acre-feet. Remember that number because we're going to come back to it. So for 65 years, through 3 wars, this arrangement held. People who study water conflicts will tell you that it's either the most durable water sharing agreement on the planet or it's not. But more on that later. First, let's talk about what actually happened in April 2025. The first thing worth knowing is that the word abeyance actually doesn't appear anywhere in this treaty. There is no clause that says that either country can press pause. The treaty can only be changed if both sides agree, full stop. So when India said that it was holding the IWT in abeyance, it wasn't using a mechanism the treaty provides. It was a political decision dressed up in a legal language. Even the World Bank's own president said so, that there is no provision in this treaty for one country to suspend it unilaterally. It either runs as written or both countries agree to replace it. Those are the only two options. But here's the thing. You don't need to be legally watertight to cause any damage because the first casualty of abeyance wasn't water, it was information. Under the treaty, India was required to share hydrological data with Pakistan, as in river levels, flood warnings, when dams were releasing water, and that's what stopped. During the 2025 floods, information that was supposed to come directly, commissioner to commissioner, came late through India's foreign ministry instead. There have also been allegations that India briefly manipulated Chenab flows, causing irregular water availability in various parts of Punjab. That's what abeyance actually looks like. It's not a dramatic shutoff, but it's actually something quieter. The slow erosion of coordination that made this whole system work. But can India actually turn off the tap? Let's do the numbers. Around 147.6 million acre-feet of water flows into Pakistan from these rivers every year. Now, remember that number from earlier, the 3.6 million acre-feet, India's entire permitted storage? That's 2% of the annual flow, just 2%. Even if India used every drop of storage the treaty allows, and even if it ignored every design restriction, it still couldn't meaningfully stop this river system at all. The math just doesn't add up. And the geography is working against India as well. Where these rivers cross from the Indian-occupied Kashmir into Pakistan, the terrain is steep, narrow, and sitting on one of the most active fault zones on Earth. Building the kind of infrastructure you'd need to actually divert or hold back these rivers in most of these locations, it's not just expensive, it's actually physically impossible. And then there's this. India's existing dams, Baglihar, Salal, Kishanganga, they're built to generate electricity, to make power. And to make power, water has to keep moving through the turbines. Weaponizing these dams against Pakistan means that India is sabotaging its own power grid. So since the treaty was suspended, India hasn't stopped a single drop of water from actually reaching Pakistan at all. And right now, with the infrastructure that exists, it can't do so either. But, and this is the important part, that doesn't mean Pakistan is entirely safe. It means that Pakistan is on borrowed time. The country has three major reservoirs, Turbela, Mangla, and Chashma. Together, these store enough water for about 4 weeks. International standards say that you need 120 days. So even a temporary disruption, as in India holding back the Chenab water through one dry winter, could wipe out Pakistan's wheat crop before a single reservoir runs out. Two new dams, the Moment and the Amir Pasha, are under construction and they won't be ready until 2029. So until then, Pakistan is in a race against a clock that it can't even fully see. So if India can't actually do this today, why does it still feel so dangerous? Because of what's being built right now, quietly in Himachal Pradesh. In May of this year, India approved an 8.7 kilometer tunnel paired with a 113 kilometer canal to take water from the upper Chenab and move it across into the Beas. The project is expected to generate nearly 4,000 megawatts of power. On paper, the volume sounds small. The Chenab carries around 35 million acre-feet a year. This project moves less than 1 million, under 3%. But here's why this particular project matters more than those numbers suggest. The treaty allows India to build hydropower on these rivers. What it explicitly does not allow is taking water from one of Pakistan's rivers and moving it into a basin that belongs to India. That's called an inter-basin transfer, and it's one of the treaty's clearest red lines. The Chenab Beas tunnel does exactly that. So this isn't really about the water it moves, it's about the precedent it sets. Indian officials have actually said that out loud, that the treaty's suspension is what makes this project possible. Cross one red line and the next one gets faster.
But there's another perspective. India is already fast-tracking 4 major hydropower projects on the Chenab: Bakaldul, Kiru, Kuwar, Ratle, and Sawalkot. Tenders have already been issued. And according to former caretaker law minister Amir Bilal Sufi, in a move that may have backfired legally, By placing the IWT in abeyance, India has withdrawn the very protection international law gives to dams in conflict. Because a civilian structure loses that protection the moment it serves a military objective. India's own water minister declared on record that not a single drop of water will go to Pakistan, and under international law, that's evidence of a belligerent intent, which means India may have just handed Pakistan the legal justification to strike its own dams.
And while all of this is happening on the ground, there's a whole separate fight playing out in a courtroom in The Hague. In May 2026, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled, reaffirming real limits on what India can do with its hydropower projects on these rivers. It was a case Pakistan brought over the Kishanganga and Ratle dams. Pakistan called it vindication, but India's response? It doesn't even recognize the court's authority in this case. And that's the trap Pakistan is in right now. The legal case is strong, the treaty's own text, the World Bank, and now a court ruling are with Pakistan. But a legal win only matters if the other side accepts the court. More importantly though, for the people actually living on this river, none of this is abstract. A lot of the farmers here have worked on this land for generations. What they don't care about is interbasin transfers or court rulings in The Hague, but about the water that comes when their crops need it. Pakistan has been raising concerns about Indian dams on the Chenab for years, Baglihar, Kishanganga, and several others. All of them moving faster now in this post-abeyance environment. What's changed isn't that these projects exist, it's that the system that used to govern them, the data sharing, the design oversight, the dispute process, none of it is functioning anymore. But here's something else to consider. A growing number of experts argue that the treaty was flawed from the very beginning, not just in how it's being violated now, but in how it was actually designed. Their argument is that the IWT wasn't really a fresh start in 1960. It was built on top of a colonial era hydraulic system, canals and barrages designed by British engineers in the 19th century for imperial priorities, not for the people who would eventually come to depend on them. The 1960 treaty inherited that infrastructure and turned it into permanent, rigid national allocations. It solved the India-Pakistan political problem of that moment, but it never really asked whether splitting a single connected river system into your rivers and my rivers made any hydrological sense. And then there's the thing that neither side could have anticipated in 1960, climate change. This treaty's water allocations were based on the assumption that river flows, fed by the Himalayan glaciers and monsoon rains, would stay more or less stable. But they aren't. Glaciers are melting faster, monsoons are becoming less predictable, and the treaty has no mechanism for any of this. It's a 65-year-old agreement trying to govern a river system that no longer behaves the way that it did when the agreement was written. Now, none of this is an argument for keeping the treaty suspended. If anything, it's the opposite. Even if India restores it tomorrow, restoration alone isn't enough. What South Asia actually needs is something the IWT was never designed to be. A living agreement, one that treats the Indus as one connected system, not 6 rivers divided by one political map. So where do we go from here? In the short term, the next year or two, almost nothing changes on the ground. India doesn't have the infrastructure, and even the most hardline government would pay too heavy a price for an actual catastrophic diversion. Medium term, 5 to 10 years down the road, watch what gets built. The Chenab River Tunnel, the Ratle, other projects on the Chenab, each one constructed without the design oversight that the treaty used to require, each one edging India's technical capacity a little closer to being able to actually manage these flows. And longer term, the threat to Pakistan might not even come from India alone. Afghanistan has announced dam plans on the Kabul River system, which feeds directly into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The threat right now isn't that India will turn off Pakistan's water, because it can't. The threat is that in 10 or 15 years, it might be able to, and by then the idea of water as a weapon rather than as a shared resource will already feel normal. Ayesha called the Chenab the land of lovers. Modi called it a weapon. The river is still flowing, but for the first time in the memory of this land, that is no longer something anyone can take for granted.